Hey, what's up, microchurch? Hope you guys have had a fantastic week. This morning, I want to ask you a question. Do you get bored easily? Man, growing up, I just don't remember really being bored that easily. I was always outside looking for things to do. I was always outside playing, working. It might have helped that I grew up on a farm for the first 8 years of my life. But even when we moved into the city, man, I tore up my neighborhood riding my bike around town, or I'd go outside and I'd shoot hoops, or I'd throw a ball against the wall, or I would go mow or something like that. I just don't remember being bored that much. But here's the thing, it's different now, isn't it? I mean, we are literally the most entertained society, the most entertained generations that the world has ever seen. We have more to do, we have more ways to connect with others, we have more information to digest than any other generation in history, whether that's through social media or movies or YouTube or whatever, right? We have more information to digest than any other generation in history. But even with all of that at our fingertips, the reality is we're left feeling empty most of the time. We're left longing for something bigger, right? Something better, something more. Everything we do, right, has to be lit. Everything we do or everything that we're a part of, right, we feel like has to be epic. It has to be Graham-worthy. We have to find ways to one-up the 1,000 other people that we follow on social media. But maybe the reason that we fall into boredom so much is because we are perfectly content, right, to sit on the sidelines wishing to be a part of something bigger, something more significant, instead of actually participating in what God is already doing all around us, right? God is writing this story. It's the most epic story ever told, right? And instead of joining God on that story, sometimes I think we just sit there and we wait for that story to interact with our life or to do something epic in our life. And we wait for something or someone else to come along. But let me ask you this. What's bigger than being a part of the biggest story ever? Right? Nothing is bigger. Every one of you, if you call yourself a follower of Jesus Christ, right, at some point in your life, someone shared the gospel with you. And because of that, your life changed and you chose to follow him. And guess what? It's your turn, right? It's your turn to go. It's your turn to share. It's your turn to tell someone who Jesus Christ is, right? It's your turn to make disciples. See, in Matthew chapter 28, Jesus gives us something to do. Basically, he takes away every excuse and every reason for us to be bored. But he tells us, but what he tells us to do is huge, right? It's epic, it's lit. In fact, it's so big that if we don't do this, right, everything else that we do, all of it, right, is useless. It's wasted. In fact, check it out in Matthew chapter 28, starting in verse 18. It says, "Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw Jesus, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and he said to them, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.'" See, Jesus, he gave us something to do, right? Regardless of what you do, regardless of how old you are, regardless whatever, right? If you are a follower of Jesus, you are commanded to go and make disciples. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go to the ends of the earth to do it, right? If that's what God is calling you to do, then go. But what this verb, right, go, means in this passage, it literally means this: as you are going, right? So as you're going, whatever it is that you're going to do that day, all right, wherever you are, wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, do it for the glory of God and seek ways to share this story and to make disciples. That word disciple, right, it's a big word, isn't it? Right? I think that when we hear that word, we tend to think of the 12 disciples that followed Jesus and that gave their life to follow him. And we don't see ourselves as those 12 disciples. And so we think that when Jesus gave this command, as sometimes I think we put in our mind that this was for those 12 disciples. It was for them. But if that were the case, right, I don't think Jesus would have included the part of to teach them to obey everything I commanded them, right? Wouldn't he have just said, hey, teach them everything, right, except this part about going and making disciples? I think this means all of us, right? If we follow Jesus, right, we are disciples. So that word disciple is used more times than the word Christian in the Bible, right? In fact, it's used 281 times, and the word Christian is only used 3. That's it. But we tend to place more emphasis on Christian than we do disciple, don't we? It sounds better for us to say that I'm a Christian instead of saying I'm a disciple, right? We might think that is a little weird to tell someone I'm a disciple. But what a disciple means is simply a follower of someone that is teaching. And so if we're a disciple of Christ, we are a follower of Christ. Disciples follow their leaders, right? You are called to be a disciple. And as a disciple, that means that you pursue Jesus the rest of your life and that you do it all that he has commanded for us to do, which is to go and make disciples. Every follower of Jesus Christ is called to go and make disciples. You're called, I'm called, we're all called to go. And so this command is not for the spiritual elite or for those of us that are in ministry, right? God's plan is to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples and to spread the gospel to the world. You are a part of God's plan. There is no plan B, right? God's plan to build his church and to build his kingdom is not to have people get up and to preach great sermons or to have ministries that have killer programs and activities. God's plan is you and me going in the world and making disciples. See, God has each and every one of us right where he wants us so that we can make disciples. Think about that, right? God put you in contact with everyone that he has put you in contact with every single day, with people who want to know him more, right? With people who need to know him, people who need to know his great love for them. But you have to be willing to go and tell them and make disciples. You have to do what Jesus calls us to do, which is go and tell, right? So my challenge for you this week is to join the biggest story ever, right? To join God's story and stop wasting your life wondering why it's so boring. Wake up and go. Own it, right? Acknowledge that this is what God has told you to do and get after it, man. Go to your schools, go to your friends, go to your work, go to your neighbors, and stop expecting someone else to do it for you and go and tell them. Jesus said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And so when you follow Jesus, he makes you a disciple maker as much as he makes me a disciple maker. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be like super spiritually elite or anything like that. You don't have to know the entire Bible, but you do have to own it and you have to go. You also have to open up and live. Invite other people into your life. Invite people who you know don't know Jesus to just live life with you, right? And to get to know them, have a relationship with them so that one day maybe you can show them who Jesus is, and not only show them, but tell them who Jesus is. And we have to stop making excuses. See, I think most of the time we don't go and tell because we just have all these excuses. We think, I don't know enough. What's the point, right? It's awkward, it's weird. But let me tell you this, right? Maybe if we step out into the weird a little bit more, life won't be so boring. Just a thought. I don't know. But maybe. So here's the thing. Start somewhere. Okay? Start somewhere today. Start somewhere this week. Own it. Own up to it. Live. Stop making excuses, right? And start making disciples. Start somewhere. For some of you, it may be starting with the few people that you come in contact with every day that you know don't know who Jesus is. Invite them to church, man. Invite them to lunch. Invite them to a Bible study. Invite them into your life. Start living life with them and start sharing the gospel with them and join the biggest story ever told. So go and make disciples.